I'm glad y'all could tune in and check your boy out. Hey, I'm Marcus, and this video is going to be interesting. Normally, I would like title this video something like financial foolishness or something. It's foolishness, but this, like, really, real talk, may be like one of the very few stories I did where there's no financial nexus to the story, but is a wild story. Definitely worthy of an attorney reaction. I'm gonna give my take on this. Shout out to Anton Daniels. I was actually watching this show, and this is where I saw this story at. As soon as I saw it, I thought this is utterly absurd. If you're looking, you can see the thumbnail for this video. This mayor is idolizing, not really idolizing, I guess, per se, but she kind of throw herself out there as if she's the Nino Brown of this serving the people type of thing. She even rocked the Nino Brown outfit at a city council meeting. All I could think about was, like, wouldn't the bad Tubi movie? It reminded me of that episode of Martin where he had the dog and he was walking around like roo, 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 trying to find out who. I think that's the one where they were trying to find out who stole his CD player. If you're new to the channel, I'm Marcus, the Debt Free Dad, where we talk about finances, financial takes, topics, current events, attorney reactions, all that good stuff. Hey, I'm a licensed attorney, but I always got to shoot the disclaimer out there. Even though I'm a licensed attorney in multiple places, none of those places amount to me being your attorney. So that means if you want legal or financial advice, go find a professional in your area, a fiduciary, if you will, someone who's going to have your best interest. Hey, that'll satisfy all the things I need to say for the bar associations. Generally, you don't want to listen to a talking head on YouTube. This is for infotainment purposes. Now, we're going to dive in and talk about the Village of Dalton. Now, before we talk about the Nino Brown public servant, I want to talk a little bit about, and if you're new to this channel, y'all know, y'all don't know, but a little bit of background. I've I've either represented or assisted in the investigation of a lot of criminals, okay? And some of those criminals were government some of those criminals were government officials, some of those criminals were large corporations, some of those criminals were just, rich individuals who wanted to scam and scheme people with bogus Ponzi schemes or whatever they thought was a slick or bright idea. So, after we watch this video, I'm gonna give y'all, because hey, so far, according to this video and the facts that we have, okay, this mayor that we're about to take a look at has not done anything wrong. But after we watch this video, I'm just gonna tell y'all, hey, if someone threw me and said, hey, we want you to find where there's fraud, waste, and abuse within the operation of our government, after we watch the video, I'm gonna tell y'all the first place that I would look, because if you look there, you're gonna find some type of wrongdoing. Is inevitable. It happens at every level of government. So I'm gonna tell y'all, hey, even though she hasn't done anything wrong, I'm telling you, if I were looking at this conduct, I would want to take a look in a certain area. We're going to dive in, but let's watch the video first. I may pause it one or two times to talk a little bit about some of the things we're seeing. But the Nino Brown outfit is wild, okay? I just like the Nino Brown outfit was completely absurd and ridiculous. Let's dive in and pull up the video so we can talk about it. Let's make sure we got the volume all the way up so everybody can hear what's going on in the village of Dalton.
Police department afford to have this many officers attached to her detail?
We can't. We really need them patrolling the streets.
So she's the part-time mayor of a South suburban village of a little more than 20,000 people.
Yet residents of Dalton are paying hundreds of thousands of dollars per year to provide security for their self-proclaimed super mayor.
Super mayor.
To investigate Tiffany Hanyard's security detail and the massive amount of overtime.
All right, before we go in, I've actually looked up Tiffany Hanyard, Mayor Tiffany Hanyard. Let me give her due respect. And Hey, credit to her. She's the youngest mayor in the village of Dalton. She's the first female mayor. And I actually looked at her bio and, hey, smart sister. Went to college, graduated, did outstanding in school. So, hey, definitely has the background and skills to get into politics.
Generated for a handful of officers. Our Dave Blacko has more.
Hey guys, this is Super Mayor Tiffany Hanyard, the people's mayor and people supervisor.
Tiffany Hanyard makes nearly $250,000 a year serving as both mayor of Dalton and Thornton Township supervisor, an elected political.
All right, let me pause that right there. Okay. Her serving in two roles as a government officials for two different cities. Hey, I'm gonna give her credit for finessing $250,000 salary as a government employee at the local level because one, that's probably not her fault. Two, the mayor of a town that size, a small town like the Village of Dalton, is probably a part-time position. Three, there should be some statute in place that expressly bars an individual from serving as mayor and in another position and another branch of government or another state government, whether it's local or federal or what have you, because it inherently creates a conflict of interest. I mean, just think about it. If I'm the mayor of Dalton, but I'm the city executive for the next town over. Hey, what if we need some goods and service? Is an opportunity for a lot of self dealing that could look bad. But hey, shout out to her because they should have did their due diligence. But they let the super mayor come up. She getting $250,000 from serving in two government positions for two different cities, which is just wow to me.
And Thornton Township supervisor, an elected political double dip. She's charismatic and controversial.
All right. Let's go back. Let's take a look at her outfit. Let's take a. She got on the Nino Brown Kango, the chain. She got a little dog in her hand. It looked like a. She got a little. It looked like a miniature Doberman or something. But she actually got a dog in her hand. She walking around talking about don't nobody know nothing. Like somebody stole her CD player. This is crazy. Like, I want to be honest, I can't take you serious as a politician if you show up to the city council. And trust me, I'm an outside of the box type of guy. You know what I mean? Like, hey, I don't like stale, dry politicians. The normal. I like people to be bright eyed, bushy tailed, new ideas, think outside the box. But you coming up dressed as a fictional drug kingpin from an early 90s movie is wild. The only thing wild is that she showed up with her own DJ and told the residents that they better have her money. To quote the song, bitch better have my money. All right, so this is her Nino Brown fit. Let's
Here she is starting a Dalton
that poor dog.
dressed like the Wesley Snipes character in the
She got the stuffed dog.
Hey, what you owe? Thank you, DJ.
And it's hard to turn anywhere in Dalton without seeing Hanyard's picture or online, where she recently commemorated 9/11 with her own photo. I'm asking you questions. But when we asked Hanyard a few months ago about her use of tax dollars, she was quickly hustled out of the room by armed security. And on Facebook, in videos posted by Hanyard herself, we see her being driven around and surrounded by Dalton officers, which got us to wondering why all the cops.
We weren't opposed to her having this security detail. How long?
Dalton trustee Brittany Norwood says Hanyard began assembling her detail shortly after being elected in 2021, using hand-picked Dalton police officers. Using a Freedom of Information request, we obtained the work records for 6 of the officers assigned to Hanyard security
This is
detail
crazy.
at various times, and showed them to some of Dalton's trustees. This is a Freedom of Information request we did to see how much overtime these officers are making on her security details.
Oh, wow. 162 hours.
162. Oh, that's nothing. What was your mind when you see these numbers?
It's disappointing. It's frustrating.
162 hours.
Every 2 weeks, which without is 80 hours. When they put on Hanyard's detail, that 80 hours balloons to well over 100 hours, sometimes 200 hours. And in the case of Officer Terry Young last May, 303 hours worked over a 2-week period. That resulted in a single paycheck of more than $13,000.
How? How does the person put in?
Hold up. That's that. Hey, politics. If a person is in politics, they have the perfect opportunity to take advantage and utilize their power. This police officer ran up a $13,000 paycheck over a 2-week period, performing overtime. And if we look, this dude almost performed, according to his paycheck, he almost performed as much overtime as there's actual time in a week. Like he only had like 4 hours off. It gets real ridiculous.
A 2-week pay period. Yeah, that's impossible. That's impossible.
330
So you never go to sleep?
hours over that period. Other officers of the security detail are also racking up overtime paychecks in the multiple thousands of dollars. We tried to question Hanyard about her detail as she went door to door in Dalton giving out water on a 100-degree day. Surrounded by police, firefighters, public works employees, and 2 videographers documenting for Dalton's Facebook page.
That's wow.
But when we gave her an opportunity to explain the routine, what did he need so they officers? As Dalton God drove in from her other job in Thornton Township to a Mexican restaurant for lunch. Trustees say the security detail is living room in her home in the morning and is with her until she's drunk. Often taking her on errands and shopping. Does she need a security detail?
Why? Why would you need a security detail? She loves it. She just loves it. She loves the detail. She's like a superstar.
Dalton trustees have filed a lawsuit against Hanyard, saying she's not justified the need for security and is spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on it without the board's approval.
I see no justification whatsoever, and more than that, it's really a detriment to the residents. The residents, if we will take the same money and put it on officers patrolling the streets, then the residents will see a much better presence, and public safety will be better.
We have some shootings, so
It's wow.
extra police patrolling our streets instead of patrolling.
And we found Dalton credit card statements showing that Hanyard takes the detail with her even when she travels out of town, spending thousands of dollars on plane tickets, lodging, and meals for the officers.
That's wow.
Taking all the officers out of town with you. Money. Anything else to defend yourself on this? As for the village's finances, trustees say Dalton is now getting sued by some vendors for failure to pay its bills.
For the last 2 fiscal years, we're $5 million in the hole. And the problem is the security detail.
It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. You don't need a governor with a detail.
That lawsuit over the mayor's detail has not yet been settled. On Monday, we emailed a list of detailed questions to Hanyard's spokesman, but never received a response. Dave Blacko, Fox 32, Chicago.
Yeah, well, you can tell somebody on her team is smart because you better not answer those damn questions. If I were your counsel, I'd be like, hey, you better not answer those damn questions, man. Just leave them out there. Don't worry about it. We're not even going to address it. But there's a few things that video brought to mind, okay? The first question is, well, the most important question. But before we get to that, this is wild for her to have a security detail. I'm just assuming I've worked in some pretty interesting roles throughout my career where I was responsible for a lot of bad people not being on the street. and I didn't have no detail. and I'm sure I'm in a lot more dangerous city than the village of Dalton. But one, I don't think the mayor of a small town like that needs a security detail to watch her that much. I just don't think there's that much risk. I mean, I would actually be interested. And I was on my phone because I was looking at the crime statistics for the city. I needed to see what the stats were of crime in that area. But I just don't think the mayor of the village of Dalton is a position where you're inherently at risk and people want to perform or do harm to you. That's point number one. Even though there are some crazy folks out there, I don't think one person working 300 or something hours over a 1 week period, like that's wild. Okay. That's kind of crazy. That's point number one. Point number two, they said in the video that she takes her security detail out of town. Now, if her security detail is going out of town over to the next city over or something like that, I don't really see any issue with that. But she said they checked the credit card. They got expensive flights, expensive ass dinners for all of these officers who it ain't no way in hell they working this much hours. It's impossible to physically. You're talking to somebody who, when I deployed to Iraq in 2003 at the peak of a war, I was up for something crazy like 48 hours straight. I don't even remember driving a vehicle from Kuwait to Iraq. I did it, but I don't. There's no way you can function that long with that little bit of hours off. It's just impossible. Your body will break down. You'll be crashing. You'll do all sorts of wild stuff. But if she's taking her law enforcement detail out of state, that doesn't even make any sense, because a lot of times what you see government officials do, or even celebrities do, they coordinate law enforcement when they travel to different states. Why do they have to coordinate law enforcement? Well, if you're a government official, she's a government official, she has a government security detail, their law enforcement authority doesn't necessarily transfer from state to state. So if I'm in Virginia and I'm a police officer and I'm working on a detail, just because I go with the governor of North Carolina, that doesn't inherently transfer my law enforcement authority to North Carolina. Now, there are some ways that could happen. Maybe if there was a specialized detail and some of those persons were deputized by some U.S. Marshals or something to that effect. I don't see why the U.S. Marshals would agree and sign off on deputizing local individuals to transport a mayor. But, it just doesn't make any sense to have a detail that's, a big ass detail like that exclusively following you around from state to state. You should probably take two people, coordinate in the state that you're going to travel so that you can get security in the state that you travel to. Because in essence, if you take a police officer from state A, he's assigned to a security detail in state B, right? He doesn't have any extra law enforcement powers. His law enforcement authorities from state A don't even transfer to state B. In state B, he is authorized to carry his firearm because of something called the Law Enforcement Officers Safety Act. It's called LEOSA. Essentially, what LEOSA is, after 9/11, because normally officers would get off work, and if they lived in Maryland but they worked in Virginia, they would have to put their firearm up. After 9/11, LEOSA, the Law Enforcement Officers Safety Act, was created to essentially give law enforcement a universal concealed carry permit. The statute expressly says LEOSA does not give you law enforcement authority. So you can carry your gun through all of these states and you're covered. It's a universal concealed carry permit, but your law enforcement authority don't travel. If you only got law enforcement authority in state A, when you go to state B, you're not an officer of the law, you're a regular individual. So regular individual, regular ass people rules apply. So the officer who goes from Virginia is on a security detail and he goes to North Carolina, he has the same authority to arrest as a regular citizen. He has the same use of force with his firearm as a regular citizen who actually has a concealed carry permit. So I think that's wild. The other thing, though, is, and the biggest question is, let me know in the comments, whose fault is this, okay? Because I think there's an equal blame to go around. I think 60% of it is everybody in the town who actually voted for the super mayor. Let's just be honest. If you voted for the super mayor, she won the election. I don't know by how much, but it probably was a lot. She might have won by a landslide. Let me see. I want to see the election results. Because if these election results are crazy, oh man, this actually got interesting now that I Google it. They tried to have a recall and everything. Wow, they tried to have a recall. It was a close election, but the question is, you got somebody who appears, I ain't gonna call her goofy. You have a politician who appears to be taking advantage of her authority, abusing her authority with the finances of the city. Who's to blame? Yeah, of course she's to blame, but yo, everybody who voted for her, she won the election. Like, y'all got to bear the burden of having an individual like this who's just burning through the town's money. The town is running a $5 million debt during the year because the funds are being misappropriated. And they did a FOIA request to find out all this information. So it's clearly public knowledge, because if you want to know, FOIA is the Freedom of Information Act is a beautiful thing. You can find out a lot of stuff using the Freedom of Information Act, even though there's a lot of ways to block it. I did some FOIA law. There's a lot of ways for agencies and the government to block certain things. But for the most part, the general rule is if you request it, we got to give you the information unless there's an exception or exclusion that prevents us from having to get it. And for stuff like she's being looked into by the media, oh, they're going to hand that stuff over real quick. Now, they look like there's some lawsuits coming down from vendors of the city who haven't got paid. There's also a potential lawsuit that's coming from the excessive use of overtime hours. And that got to be a pain in it because, the police officers have a set budget. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. Now, she hasn't done anything illegal, okay? But if someone said, hey, DFD, we want to retain you to do an independent audit, if you will, or investigation into the operations, the governmental operations of the Village of Dalton, to see where you can find any fraud, any waste with taxpayers' dollars are being wasted, or any abuse. The easiest place to look, okay, and I looked at and conducted a lot of investigations, some government, some not. If you want to look for fraud, waste, and abuse in any government facility, any government organization, the easiest place to go is to the contracts. The contracts are where all of the government fraud goes down. Like if you want to bring a lot of money into the city, start going through the city's contract. Some of the things that you'll see are essentially the good old boy network. People giving out contracts for government services to their friends or to their old colleagues, right? And sometimes, a lot of those contracts are probably overinflated. Like, hey, we're going to pay $2 million to my old friend who started this company 6 months ago to make street signs. Why am I paying $2 million to make street signs? Street signs aren't that goddamn expensive. But you see good old boy systems where people are giving contracts to their friends. And to try and make the process look like it's legit, what happens most time, every government entity has a bid process that they have to follow. We want to get computers for the school. Okay, we can't just go pick one company to give us all the computers. We got to select a certain amount of bids, and from those bids, there are requirements to say we have to have some minority-owned businesses, some businesses that are owned by women, some businesses that are owned by veterans. But government entities are supposed to follow this bid process, right? But a lot of times they have contracts that don't go through the bid process. Sometimes the bid process is finessed so they can filter the money to an individual or a company that they want to. It gets real wild. It gets real shady. But y'all let me know what y'all think of Mayor Tiffany Hanyard. I mean, it's kind of wild, but yo, y'all elected her. Y'all got to deal with the consequences of it. And there should be something on the books. A lot of times, there should be something on the books that gives the city council the authority to potentially get the mayor up out of there if the mayor is doing something wild. So they probably have a recourse, but hey, this a small town, and when you're in those small towns, hey, the mayor got a lot of pull. But the problem is, the biggest problem is going to be if this ever does turn into a criminal investigation, a lot of those officers are going to be on the hook as well, because there's just no way in hell that you can work 7 days a week and only have like 30 hours off. Like, that's freaking impossible. And it wouldn't be difficult to find out where the hell these guys were at, what type of work they were doing. Literally, if I wanted to look into somebody hours and see if they were legit on their security detail, I would just pull cell phone records. I need the mayor's cell phone records so I can see where the mayor was at. I want to know where the mayor was at 2 in the morning. So the mayor's at location A 2 in the morning, and you're on a security detail, and you not at location A at 2 in the morning. It's a damn problem. You over at your house chilling, sleep is a problem. But it's going to be interesting. There's a bunch of lawsuits filed, but hey, politics is the new finesse. If you're in politics and you shady, you probably going to try to finesse something off the top and get the bag and run it up real fast. That's what it appears that Mayor Hanyard is doing. Hey, hasn't done anything, been charged with any crime, but it looks suspect as hell. We just going to call it like we see it. Hey, I appreciate you all tuning into this video. If you enjoyed this video, check out the video on the screen. There's going to be more content related to finances and attorney reactions. And next week, I'm going to drop a dope video because I'm going to show y'all a really slick way. It's not slick, but a legit way. When I say slick, people think I'm trying to finesse them or run a play. But I'm going to show y'all how, if you're buying a house in this market, you can get a home for an interest rate a lot lower than what current interest rates are going for. 7-8% now. You can pick up something for 2.2, 3, 4% if you find the right deal. But I'm gonna drop some knowledge on that. It's gonna be an old school explainer educational video. I haven't done one of those in a long time, so it's gonna be dope. I may break out the old school whiteboard and write something on a whiteboard for y'all. Y'all take care. Peace.